Welcome to our August cybersecurity meetup. I'm Louis Alvarez with the Alvarez Technology Group, and with me today I have Jeff Dix, our Chief Security Officer, and Elliot Frutkin, our Chief Technology Advisor. We have some guests that we'll introduce in a moment, but thank you for attending. If this is your first meetup, welcome. If you are back for more, I'm glad you're glutton for punishment. The format is really easy. We're going to have a panel discussion. We like to make it interactive, so if you have any questions, feel free to use the Q&A at the bottom of the Zoom meeting to enter your questions. We'll answer them either in real time, or if we don't get to them, we will be happy to respond via email later after the session. As always, we start with what's trending in cybersecurity, and today we're going to be talking about incident response planning. But before we get to that, we want to make you aware of a new alert that just recently came out from Microsoft about phishing. Elliot, why don't you tell us about it?
Sure. Well, the headline is Microsoft warns of sneaky phishing campaign. And in our conversation preparing for this, I learned an interesting statistic that about 43% of phishing attempts try and impersonate Microsoft. Surprise, surprise, because a lot of us use Microsoft. But there is a lot of information out there from Microsoft and others on the recent glut of phishing campaigns, but they're getting really crafty and learning how to spoof email addresses. And so you really need to be careful what you're clicking on. But the bottom line is someone is going to click on one of those things.
Yeah.
And so today we're going to talk about what do you do when somebody accidentally clicks on something.
Yeah, exactly. And with that, I'd like to introduce Mike O'Brien and Petrus Human. It's not really human, right? You can tell us how to really pronounce your last name. From Cloud Oak and Plan for Continuity. And gentlemen, you are the experts in incident response planning. They provide a platform that we use for our clients to develop incident response plans. But I'll let them take over and let us know what exactly is an incident response plan and why is it important?
Louis, thank you for having us. And it's pronounced Himan. However, the human gets you through passport control in most countries, so that's good. So Plan for Continuity is a product that Cloud Oak offers to its partner base. And essentially, Plan for Continuity is a SaaS-based application that allows you to automate your plans, whether that is incident response plans around cybersecurity or something like pandemic response. Any kind of plan can be automated. And the nice thing about it is it has the ability to also interact with certain communication types. So think about the phishing you just mentioned. If there's an email phishing attack, you're not going to want to send emails to all the staff members because it may just increase the odds of somebody opening up the wrong mail. So we've got SMS technology built in as well, and soon we'll have a phone or voice calls in there also. So it allows you to send out communications via different medium in case there is a breach on one of the other options around. So in terms of incident response plans, I think there's a lot of uncertainty for a lot of people around how to structure them, how to build them. And what's nice about the Plan for Continuity product is that you can go in and essentially take whatever you have already or interact with a company like Alvarez to assist you to build something specific to your organization. There are some templates available already that you can use as a foundation to get going. But I think the main thing is to have something in place where you are able to identify, firstly, what the event was, and then to take the relevant actions. We can get into that a little bit more in a bit more detail. So basically detecting the threat identifiers, the incident risk factors, you're making sure you contain the spread. And once you've done that first initial step, you basically go into your incident resolution, where you go into eradication, recovery, whatever other medium you need to follow to get into a working environment again. And then the last step obviously would be to prevent further spread, having a bit of a post-mortem and ensuring that all stakeholders are communicated to. And make sure that something like malware is eradicated. If there's the requirement for system recovery, that is followed. Incident remediation afterwards. And as I said, the post-incident management, ensuring that you have an incident review, define the lessons uncovered, whether that is done by a discovery meeting, policy updates, and then also learning and applying the lessons learned to your policies, your configurations, your process changes, and so forth. So it's a bit of a mouthful, but there are obviously a lot of, but I think that's the whole point of it. A lot of people think it's as simple as just running an antivirus scan and everything is fixed, but there's a lot more to make sure that you go through a certain process. And if you're under stress, following that process is very difficult. People under stress typically don't perform as they should. And what Plan for Continuity does is it helps you to make sure you do the right steps at the right time and that you don't forget anything. You can assign certain tasks to the correct people. So if I'm the guy identifying, I can do my job. Once I'm done, it passes it over to Mike, who now knows how to eradicate it. And then it passes it over to you, Lewis, who knows how to go and implement the correct procedures and items afterwards to ensure that an event like this is either not going to happen again or much less likely to happen afterwards.
Yeah, one of the things, Jeff and I have been building incident response plans for clients for years. And to this point, they've all been on paper, which is great if you can get to the paper. And it's usually, a document that's stored on a shelf someplace. And then when you actually have an incident of some sort, you scramble to go find it. And you find out that, a lot of the things that are in those plans make assumptions that no longer are true or no longer relevant. And having a platform like Plan for Continuity for us lets us create these plans in a place that everybody can get to, right? So it's not just sitting on the shelf behind my desk. It's on a hosted environment where everybody has access to it. And if I happen to be, not around, maybe I'm on vacation or maybe I'm, not in the office when something happens, somebody else could take over and run the plan and execute that plan.
Yeah, Lewis, to your point, I mean, having a collaborative software that allows, or a collaborative platform that allows you to, work with other stakeholders in the business to make sure that everything is, up to date. And if somebody is off or away, that you are able to assign different tasks so that somebody else is able to step in. Because as we know, I mean, cyber attacks don't happen when we want them to happen. They happen at the most inopportune times, right? So you want something that allows you to, regardless of where you are, take immediate action as a business. And then when it comes to the traditional IRPs, they're always developed with the best of intentions, but often they end up on a shelf. So to your point, right? 6 months, 8 months down the road, a couple stakeholders have changed, or somebody's got a new cell phone number. It could be as simple as that, but now you don't have the correct contact details. So it's having something that's a live document that you're able to constantly update is really important.
Well, the example that I like is when we had the start of this pandemic, and the organizations that were large enough or sophisticated enough to have pandemic response plans realized that they probably should have looked at them and updated them over the years. Maybe things would have gone a little bit smoother.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, we developed several pandemic plans for our clients in financial services and in banking, and nowhere in any of those plans was there a lockdown. I mean, right, there was no lockdown anywhere in this plan. So now we revise these plans to include that possibility. And one of the things that I like about doing something like this is there's the technical side of things, right? Like, okay, I need to remove this malware. I need to figure out where it came from. I need to restore from backup. But then there's all the business side of things. Like I need to contact my insurance company. In today's world, right, if you have cyber insurance, you really can't start doing anything unless they give you permission. Because it's not like before where, if you have cyber insurance, you just did what you need to do and filed a claim and they'd write you a check. Now they want to get involved in a cyber incident, like right from the get-go. They want to get their forensics people involved. They want to get their attorneys involved. So you can't really get started, Or if you do get started and then you contact them, you might actually void that claim because they'll say, hey, you didn't follow the process. You didn't take the necessary notification steps before you started to try to recover from this incident. So we're not going to cover it. Building a plan that takes into account will prevent you from making mistakes that can actually cost you money. It also will let you do things like if you're in an industry, for example, that has compliance requirements, who do I notify? What regulators do I notify? What's the threshold that requires me to notify them? If data is stolen and maybe it's 2 records, that doesn't require notification. But in California, if it's 250 records or more that get compromised, you have to notify the state.
Yep.
Having a plan that builds all that into or takes all that into account and has the right people to notify is hard to do on paper, and it's hard to execute on paper. It's really easy to do on a platform that you can plug in all the people, the cell phone numbers of who needs to get texts and things like that. So we believe that incident response planning is a critical component to cybersecurity and having a great having good cyber hygiene. So we're going to be rolling this out to our managed security clients over the course of the next 6 months as we implement more of these techniques. But what other things can you do with there's obviously cybersecurity, but there's other incidences that you can actually plan for as well.
Lewis, maybe just to end off on your point of insurance, the other good thing about having something like plan of continuity as well is that everything is tracked. So if you go and kick off the plan, any communications, any actions that happen is tracked and logged with a time, date stamp, who's done what. So from a insurance point of view, you can actually prove that you follow the correct procedures. When it was done in a timely fashion, and all that is available right after the event when you close the plan off. Even if you close the plan off halfway, it'll show what was done with the time, date stamps, and who did what. So you can actually prove that you followed the procedure, which should make the insurance claims a bit easier in the end. In terms of
the other thing that I really like, just in terms of communications, is it's not even internal communications or regulators. In a lot of incidents, you need to communicate to the public or your clients or other vendors, if you've had a breach. And yes. I think that it's really helpful to be able, with a clear head, to sit down and say, okay, if incident A happens, what is our messaging? And being able to plan that ahead of time instead of while you're in the middle of all of this craziness and have that preloaded into the system, or yes. You need to notify the media of something. Social media, contact your PR firm. Yeah, contact your PR firm. So
you
go ahead.
So Elliot, you can actually load in vendors and different people into the system as well. So if you're doing your initial investigation plan and find that people outside of the organization need to be notified, you can actually, as you said, have a secondary plan which can be kicked off from within that initial plan. So you can go and select and say, oh, it's a feature we call process branching. So you can actually, it's like those old kids books where you can say, if you turn left into the dark hall, you get this, and if you go through the door, you get that. So you can actually set up something like that as well. Well, depending on the situation, you can go and select where the outcome needs to go. So if there is a requirement to let the government know or customers know, you can then launch the notify customers plan. Everything's preloaded, so you don't have to run around and find email addresses and phone numbers. You can launch the plan, kick it off from within the investigatory plan, and just go for it.
Adventures, I think the term you were
choose your own adventure.
I was just going to say that the term he was looking for was choose your own adventure.
Hopefully we can call this choose your own solution, but
but Elliot, to your point earlier about the pandemic response and why it's important to work with experienced partners is, how do you plan for something you've never gone through before? And so that's why companies that did have pandemic response plans, but that they had no concept of lockdowns and different procedures, well, no one had gone through it, at least in our generation, had gone through a pandemic like this. And so when you're looking at things like cybersecurity and you're a business trying to protect yourself, it's always in your best interest to work with experts, because how do you know to protect yourself, and what processes do you put in place if you've never gone through it yourself, right?
Yeah, and you know, one of the things that we like to do when we work with our clients is really understand their business, not just the technology that they use, but what is, you know, what is their business, what's important to them, what's critical for their success, so that when we're building our solutions and you know, something like an incident response plan, we can take into account all of these elements that are outside of the technology, but still critical to their business. So an example would be if you're an organization that has a board of directors and you have an incident, you need to notify the board. You know, they have a fiduciary responsibility, and you want to make sure that you build that into the plan so that it doesn't get lost in the middle of the crisis as you're trying to figure out, you know, how do we recover from this? Hey, we forgot to call the board. Oh, dang it. So, you know, we have to take all of that stuff into account, as well as, you know, there's, you know, especially in today's world where you have a remote workforce and you want to, if there's an incident, you want to notify not just the people in the building, right, but
externally,
everywhere, so that there's a clear understanding of there's something going on, and it's just not the people that are in the four walls of your office space that are notified.
Well,
And
Lewis,
sorry, Mike. No problem. We've actually thought of that kind of situation as well within the software, in as much as very often you go through a plan and find out that step 4 should have been, there should have been something between step 4 and 5. And the software actually allows you on the fly to add in that notify the board of directors step. And it's then locked into the plan going forward as well. So you can kind of, either through testing phases, your quarterly DR tests or quarterly cybersecurity tests, you can actually go run the plan and modify it on the fly, save it, and then it's ready for next time. I've been involved in many MSPs before as well, and specifically in the backup and disaster recovery space. And what I found is, firstly, technology people don't do reports. So the software like this helps a lot. And secondly, I've been through many failovers where switch port 7 had to be changed to X or Y or Z. And every time it's a scurry around, they do this, and it's never updated on the plan. Next time you run the test simulation again, everybody's running around for the details for on how to switch port 7 from X to Y kind of thing. So it allows you to pick up those issues, and during the execution of the plan, either via a testing phase or simulation or the live event, you can actually add details into the plan, put it in the right position, and move on, knowing that next time when you run this incident response plan, everything is where it should be.
Yeah, and I like the fact that when you run that test, it's fully documented, so that when you have the regulators coming in, for example, if you're banking a bank and they want to know, hey, did you run your pandemic tabletop exercise, or did you do your cyber incident tabletop exercise? And you say, yep, here it is. Here's the whole thing, and you don't have to write up a document. You just give them the actual, test results.
I'm a techie by trade, and I love this kind of thing where you don't have to type a lot of things out. It's literally do your job, say yes, and it adds in the yes, adds your name to it, and the report is done.
One
in a
of the
human readable
things
form.
I know your software, I can't remember what it's called, but it's kind of the roll call type.
Yes.
Yep.
Maybe you want to talk a little bit about that, because I think that in a lot of incidents, it's important to know that people have received a message, or that they're okay, or that they're safe. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that functionality.
Yeah, Petrus, do you want me to jump in? And
Mike, you do that one, yeah.
Yeah, so the roll call feature was added after we had originally developed our mass communication tool into Plan for Continuity, and so essentially what was happening is we were sending out alerts to everyone at the client site, or it could be external stakeholders, whomever was the recipient, but we had no way of tracking the responses. Did somebody get it? And God forbid there was a physical event in the building, were your staff members okay, right? So if you can imagine something like a fire evacuation, which is i.e. why the term roll call was used, how were we able to track, whether everyone had made it out of the building safely? Were people just not at the office that day, maybe working from home? And so that's why we didn't find them in the parking lot, right? We couldn't see them, they weren't there. So the roll call functionality was built in to be essentially fully configurable survey buttons that when you're developing your plans, you can figure out exactly what responses that you need from your team. And you can load those in so that when the communication goes out to everyone via either email, SMS, or both, then the employees or the recipients of that communication can quickly just click one of the buttons, and that all of those responses come back to the plan manager and are collected for you. So if you're the one that's running point on the event, you don't even need to really be sitting in front of the screen. You can just periodically check in and you'll get a full list of everybody that's responded. It'll group them by responses, and then you'll also have a small list of non-respondents, so anyone that hasn't responded yet, and then you'll know who to prioritize and who to communicate with directly. And what's really cool about this, Elliot, is we've used that functionality to provide COVID screening for a lot of our customers. So what we did is we built in a communication that goes out automatically on a daily cadence to our customers, and it basically goes through, do you have these or any of the following symptoms? And then in the roll call buttons below, it's, yes, I do have, or no, I don't have any of the symptoms. Yes, I have one or more. I'm not working today, or I'm working from home. And so everyone is just able to, in the morning, click a quick response, and boom, that's it. That's the only requirement from the recipient. And then all that information is tracked by Plan for Continuity.
One of the things, just in our conversations, this is about cybersecurity, this discussion, but there are a lot of scenarios where these incident response plans come into play.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that it's important to at least mention a few of them. For example, one of the ones that we talked about is like a recall, like in agriculture recall, or an active shooter. So I don't know if you want to expand on this.
Yeah, we're working with one of our agricultural clients that is looking at the platform as a way to automate their incident response when they have a recall, right? So if you've ever heard, seen those E. coli or salmonella recalls where they have to return the chicken or the bagged salad or whatever it is that the FDA decides needs to be returned, there's a process that you have to go through, and it's all kind of documented, kind of on the fly. So the idea of being able to go in there and have a clear plan for, hey, once a recall is initiated, what do we need to do? Who's responsible for what? Do we, who's our PR firm that we need to get involved to get the messaging right? What does that messaging look like? Do we put it out on social media? Do we, do we contact our distributors? Do we contact our suppliers? So all of those things that are kind of intuitively known by one or two people in the organization that are responsible for it can now be automated and can be documented so that you can think it through thoughtfully ahead of time. And that's what really incident response planning is all about. It's like looking at what may happen and thinking about it and sitting in, around a table, like conference room table with all the key stakeholders and putting together that plan. How will we respond? And what I find interesting is, regardless of the kind of plan, whenever we have those conversations with clients, you'd be surprised at the disconnect that there is between the people in the room. Like, why would we do that? No, we would never do that. Oh, yeah, no, we have to do that. And it's just the coming together of all the minds that would otherwise come together during the incident and have those same arguments in real time.
Well, the other interesting thing when you're sitting with a client and you start going down the rabbit hole of, well, what would this event look like to you? Often they start with the best possible outcome, right? And then as you start scaling and you start asking deeper questions, you get to the point where it's, what is the worst case scenario? And based on the worst case scenario, what are our remediation steps? And that's when you really get the gold. And oftentimes it would be the worst case scenario where the panic really sets in, and then mistakes make things exponentially worse. So when you're able to sit down and you're able to have that real discussion with your client and say, okay, guys, it's not, more than likely it's not going to be just a little stin or a little nick on the arm. It's what do you do? God forbid it goes as bad as it could go. And you really, it gives, as Lewis said, it gives you the chance to plan for it as opposed to just reacting.
Exactly. Well, we try to keep these meetups to 30 minutes because time is important to everybody. We do have a couple questions. I encourage you, if you have any questions, to ask them, but let's pivot to the two that we do have right now. Somebody wants to know, how do you know if something could be a phishing email? Well, there's a lot of ways to detect phishing emails. We can, that's an entire 30-minute program.
I was just gonna say, I was gonna,
But
that maybe next month.
maybe we'll do that next time. But primarily what you need to look for is, do you know the sender? Does it look funny? Take your time. You don't have to click on anything right away. If you have some doubts about the email, then delete it and wait for them to send it to you again. If you get an email from somebody that you think or that you know but looks funny, call that person, pick up the phone. Calling's still a legitimate way to contact people.
Yeah, use a separate means of communication. Like when I got that email from Lewis to go buy a bunch of gift cards, I decided I should probably text him or call him instead of responding to that email.
But it's also very important for the business to communicate that with staff, right? So when you do have a good understanding of what to look for in the business, then communicate that with everyone, because it's not the people that are prepared that are usually the vulnerable ones. It's the ones that get an email from a friend, or it looks like it's from a friend, and it's an album of their trip to Peru, and bang, now you have an issue.
Now you have an issue, yeah.
I'll just add on to that, if I may. It's pretty critical these days that every business have an email filtering service that can identify as much of the phishing email as possible and filter it out so it doesn't even get to your end users. It's impossible to filter out everything, but certainly an email filtering product can substantially help with that. In addition to regular cybersecurity training for your end users to train them on what to look and how to identify fishy looking emails out there.
Good point, Joe.
Yeah, our clients that have managed security services with us have that training program in place.
Part of the package.
Yeah, part of the deal.
We call it the human firewall, right? Because that's your last line of defense and your first line of defense are the people that work in your business. Second question that we have is it good to have cyber insurance? And the answer to that one is absolutely. It is something that is relatively affordable still, despite the number of incidences that we read about. Cyber insurance is still relatively affordable. And it's a nice way to block or to get coverage that normal business insurance doesn't have. So a lot of regular insurance companies or regular insurance policies don't cover cyber incidents, so that if you do get hit, that's going to be excluded. You want to talk to your broker, your insurance, whoever you're getting your normal insurance from, and even if you're a consumer. Elliot recently signed up for a policy for himself because consumers can get hit as well as businesses. So look into cyber insurance. It's pretty cheap, quite frankly, for what the protections that it offers.
Yeah, and I would add on to that, Lewis, as well, is if you don't have cyber insurance, you're risking the survival of your business through a cybersecurity attack. So cybersecurity insurance can help pay ransoms. It can get forensic people involved. It's really beneficial if you do have a cybersecurity incident in recovering from that incident. And there are businesses that haven't had cybersecurity insurance not survive an incident. So it's becoming more and more a critical element to any business that's out there using IT systems, which is pretty much every business.
To Lewis's point, I look at cybersecurity insurance just like liability insurance, just like auto insurance, which is required. And once I learned that there was consumer cybersecurity insurance, I did an analysis and thought to myself, okay, what does it look like if A, B, or C happens? And for the $15 or $20 a month that it costs me, it's well worth it. Makes me sleep better at night. So
Yeah, you wouldn't drive a car without insurance. So it's, you shouldn't operate a computer without insurance either.
Well, gentlemen, Mike and Petrus, thank you so much for being our guests today and talking about incident response planning. Mouthful. If any of you out there want to get any more information, feel free to email us or contact us. If you have our, you can send an email to info@alvareztg.com or give us a call at 753-7677 and press option 1. So with that, thank you very much and have a great day, guys.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everybody.
guys.
Thanks a lot.
Have a
Thanks for
great day,
having us.
guys. Take care.